Hey, welcome to Fly Ventures at the Vise. In this tutorial, I will demonstrate how to tie a basic hopper pattern variation utilizing all synthetic materials named the Straggle hopper. The Straggle hopper handle is due to the use of Straggle chenille to build a buggy body and to create a distinct palmered segmentation. The Straggle hopper is a reasonably simple fly to tie. Minimal amounts of materials are required, fishes well in many sizes and colors. A material list will be provided at the end of the tutorial. Today I'll be tying this example on a generic dry fly hook, size 8 and 3x long, olive Straggle chenille, yellow 2mm craft foam, tan poly yarn, barred brown silly legs, and we'll be tying using 5/1000 mono thread. So let's get started. The first step in tying all flies is to lay down a thread base. In this case, we're laying down a thread base of the 5/1000 mono thread. Wrap it to the back, trim it to length, and move on to the next step. Next, we're going to tie in 4 strands of crystal flash. In this case, the crystal flash gave me some trouble. It is going to get doubled over and eventually, but in this case I should have trimmed the crystal flash shorter to start with, then tied it in, then wrapped it over. It would be a lot less unruly and troublesome. Be patient with the crystal flash. Work your way back. Wind down the crystal flash towards the bend of the hook and start your way down the bend. Once you have it in place, trim it so that it's about the length of a hook gap. Next, we will tie in the Straggle chenille onto the hook shank. We will wrap our way back to the bend of the hook and forward, tying down the remainder of the Straggle chenille to build a base for the materials to be wrapped over the top of. At this point, we'll put a half hitch on the shank of the hook to keep this thread from moving around, and we will take advantage of the rotary functions to palmer our way towards the eye of the hook with open spirals. Note that my Straggle chenille is inside a bobbin, makes it much easier to put it on as the rotary vise pulls the chenille off of the spool. Here we will tie it off and clip it to length. After clipping off the Straggle chenille, we will wrap the monofilament thread back to the bend of the hook. Using the monofilament line will keep the threads from showing up when you tie in the rest of the materials. Because we wrapped over the straggly materials, it's likely that the monofilament line trapped some of them, so it's a good idea to take a bristle brush and try to free up any of those captured fibers. Otherwise it won't be quite as buggy as it could be. Now we will tie in a 3 to 4 inch section of the Straggle chenille. Cut it to length. This is in preparation for a follow-on step. Now advance your thread to just over the barb of the hook. Tie in a pair of rubber legs. Orient them as you'd like and tie them down. Once satisfied with the position, advance your thread and repeat the process for the front legs about 2/3 of the way up the hook shank. Tie them in the same manner until you're satisfied with their position. Work your thread back to the tie-in point of the rear legs We will now add in the pre-cut and pre-trimmed yellow 2mm foam. We'll tie it in the back, and we'll create a small flat spot that we're going to use for tying in the follow-on materials, primarily the wing. We will now take our tan poly yarn and tie it in over the flat that we just previously created. We'll tie in a couple of wraps. We'll straighten up the wing to make sure it's directly on top. We'll fold the wing back, and then what we'll do is we'll advance our mono thread to create 3 relatively uniform abdomen segments. Here working on the second, and then we'll go beyond the legs, pull the legs back, and tie down the front, being careful not to trap the front legs underneath the abdomen bubble that we create. After completing the third segment, use your fingers to manipulate the materials, mostly the foam and the wings and the legs, so that they're sitting directly on top of the hook shank. This may take a minute, but do it until you're satisfied with the appearance. At this point, reach to the back of the fly and grab onto the piece of straggle chenille that we tied in during the first step, and palmer your way up the body segmentations following the pattern that we created in the previous step. Work your way to the front, doing your best not to trap the legs as you're advancing the chenille. Wrap it with a couple of tie-down wraps to hold the straggle chenille in place, and then clip it off. In this step, we're going to tie in the remaining piece of the tan poly yarn to create the wing. We'll fold it back. Again, we'll orient the foam, and we'll fold the foam over to create the hopper head. Now we're going to use a couple of thread wraps to create the bulbous head, as can be seen here. Now we advance our thread, and here we can either use a whip finish or a few half hitches. Here I chose to use a few half hitches to complete the tie-off process. After applying a few, trim off the excess thread and move on to the next step. All that remains to complete the straggle hopper is to apply your artistic touch to shape the head the way you see fit. Here I'm simply going to cut off the backing wing, and then cut some angles off the head, and then soften the edges of the upper wing just to give it a less abrupt shape. We will now apply the final touches to finish up the hopper pattern. We're going to trim the poly yarn wing by cutting it off at an angle. We'll trim the legs to length. In this particular case, I cut the legs a little shorter than I should have. It's easier to cut the legs off on stream and shorten them than it is, obviously, to add that once they're off. Once I've cut the legs to length, I turned the fly over and scrubbed out the bottom of the body again with my brush to free up any loose fibers of the straggle chenille that were captured by the threads in the process. Pulled the legs around just to make sure everything is where I want it. The brushing did free up some fibers and gives it a nice buggy appearance from the underside. This is a fun fly to tie. It's not very difficult. So I hope you enjoy tying it, and even more so, I hope you enjoy fishing it. Thank you for watching.